Okay, so where to begin?
Yeah, I think I found it very moving, very rich, and it speaks to the human heart.
The whole thing?
The whole thing, all of it. But particularly insofar as it speaks to our desire for and journey toward authentic love relationship with the divine. Of which the little red-haired girl is a symbol.
Is the symbol perfect?
Kind of.
But not just a symbol.
Uh-huh.
Because I think he sees his heart's deepest desire in her, right? It's a transcendent desire because whenever he sees her, he talks about how it draws him out of himself, and he can become the greatest thing or the greatest version of himself, right?
What's all that stuff he was saying when he was having his little, theophany, basically, is what it was.
In the nurse's office?
Yeah. And the hearts are everywhere. It's like all of life's potential is
can be actualized.
Is
possible.
Yeah. These are classic, that is the staple of the human soul as it approaches beatitude. It's like there are all these fantastical desires in my heart which before were impossible because of my fallenness, but now are realizable.
Yeah, let's go with it. And I think the thing that was cool too is he has all these ideas of how he's going to impress the little red-haired girl, or win her desire, as opposed to the fact that the very person who he was being through his virtue, through his just being Charlie Brown, like a good person,
right, being himself.
It made me think of the gospel verse where it talks about, don't do your works to be seen, but you'll be seen by your Father who is in heaven. And every time he does something that's good, that's contrary to his hope to impress the little red-haired girl, there's a little head turn where she notices.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And then it's the Father in heaven, seeing all the good that you do in private. But it all leads up to what you're saying. I hesitate to use the word, but beatitude, the beatific vision of the very last scene. When he's speaking to her on the school bus, when she's about to get on the school bus, and he's before her, and he's like, I have nothing to give, and she's like, actually, you do. It's this well done, my good and faithful servant moment. He realizes that she does see something good.
Yeah, I think that moment kind of serves both purposes. Like most great allegory of a completion, a sort of beatific moment, but also perhaps a point of conversion or an unveiling to see the true nature of prayerful relationship with the Lord, what that might look like. There's some saint, I forget who, but kind of summed it up in a quote that sort of encapsulates what a lot of saints have been saying for centuries, but saying that the Lord loves us not only in spite of our faults, but also independent of our virtues. That no amount of good works has any bearing. It kind of ping-pongs between the two, right? Of being super obsessive about his shortcomings, and then kind of trying to lean on the good works that he's doing to impress her.
His magic show, his book report.
Right, which through it all, she sees him for him and then loves that in him. But, okay, start to finish. The first, moment is the pencil, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pencil, which, as you aptly put, really has a deep sacramental feel to it.
Every time he approaches the pencil, it's a reminder, a visible reminder of an unseen reality.
It's an embodiment of her that's tangible and possessible by him, to kind of lift his spirit to her in that kind of way. And I love that it first comes to him rolling down the floor, all slow, and time stops, and it's here's this gift coming from what is above and like inaccessible
Mhm.
and totally transcendent that he could
She's
never
something,
that he
I'm
could
nothing.
never possibly approach. You know.
Mhm.
So she does kind of make the initiation in that way of like, well, because like into your nothingness I will bring my somethingness.
We love because he first loved.
Yeah, so the pencil comes, and tell him about the chewed up time.
Okay, so the tell him. The chewed up, the pencil we
Tell
also
me.
notice has tooth marks, and there's teeth marks.
Tooth
I
marks.
think there's two aspects to that. The tooth marks, as you pointed out earlier, point out that there is something in the beloved. So the little red-haired girl's pencil has tooth marks on it. It shows us that there's something in the beloved that we are made in the image of the beloved. So something that Charlie Brown has, his chewing, pencil habit, is something that is inherent in her character as well.
Yeah.
And
Give me your hand.
it's also kind of a
That Imago Dei thing.
right, and it's also like pencil chewing is considered to be a flaw, and I think it can also, in the sacramental sense, the liturgical sense, be reminded that the liturgy and sacraments have a divine and a human element.
Yeah, that's like straight theology of the body, right? Of like rejecting this puritanical notion of like approaching perfection and approaching the Godhead is like a movement from the physical into spiritual or whatever, when really it's like raise up your humanity and divinize it.
Grace built on nature.
Even your tooth marks have a place. My father's house.
Yes.
Anyway.
There
yeah,
was,
but it doesn't just come to him like, here's you down here, and that sucks. So here's the sacrament to like give you a taste of relationship with God, but it rolls down the classroom floor, like stops at his feet, and he interprets it correctly in that moment. Like here is an invitation, which is what the sacraments are. They are, dispensaries of divine life, but they're also an invitation to participation. Like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to go and talk to her and like reciprocate what has been initiated with my own initiation, which from first to last is a grace all along, but it still allows us that the grace of what Thomas Aquinas would call secondary causality, of like having an influence in our own salvation and our own growth in virtue, like, to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, kind of thing, to approach
like Charlie Brown,
that
fear
which
and
is
trembling.
that which is so holy and divine, like instills the true fear of God.
And I will say this: you talk about the sacrament being a source of divine life, a source of grace. I did notice this, and it didn't occur to me until just now. The moments when he notices the pencil are the moments before great acts of virtue. We talked about the kite as virtue, or virtue just as its classical definition in terms of like a good habit, a good practice. The first time he notices the pencil in the classroom is when or not in the classroom, in his bedroom, I think is when he prepares to, maybe it wasn't the dancing part, but I think it was the book report.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was the dancing part, because he saw the pencil and he was inspired by it, and he's like, I'm going to do something great. He does the dancing thing. But he also,
Yeah, that's right.
he gets very bogged down by kind of the weight of the world as made manifest by the War and Peace, this gigantic book. And he thinks he can't do it, and then he goes to the pencil again. And when he writes it with his own pen, he just makes a mess.
Yeah.
But when he goes to the pencil, he
It's
writes
beautiful.
the 1,000-page
the
or
pencil
1,000-word essay.
with which he writes the book report, which is like then becomes like their first real, the foundation of their first authentic interaction. Right? When she like comes back, he throws the bag over his head, no, not worthy,
Yep.
and she kind of elevates like, oh, you did this work, like this good thing,
And
again, not
she
really that
says-
interested in the actual book report. Like she
Right.
says, oh, we had to do a book report. Like it's not the actual work of
Right.
Christian life and like the merits of virtuous living that the Lord is interested in so much as our
The
heart's
life.
movement that goes into it. So
The
she
type of
only
person.
cares about like, oh wow, this great thing that you did for me, and he's just like, oh no, it's crap, whatever.
He's focused on the thing
And then when the work is shredded, his heart is broken.
because he places his value in that.
Right. And she kind of tries to reach out, as the Lord often does, like coming down a little bit to our level, like, well, we could fix it. Like, it's not what this is really about.
And there's
Here,
another
let me
sign,
like come
there's
down a
another
little
sign
bit.
of the Imago Dei again, because she says good grief, which is such a Charlie Brown saying, right?
Yeah.
There's a commonality there.
It's
again.
incarnation. She's speaking
Yeah.
human language. Like, but he misses the point, and his heart is broken.
Again. And I do want to say
And it goes
this.
back, and what does he do when his heart is broken? He goes back and he takes the pencil and he puts it in his drawer and he closes it. Like, this is now, it kind of takes love, like that active and wild living reality, which makes demands of us and like draws us out of ourselves, pushes us out of ourselves, and he takes it and makes it a cold, possessed thing to like hide away in my own interior, no longer to have effect in my life and like draw me out, but to kind of focus me inward on myself, like with my grief, which is really like.
And that's again precisely because he was focused on the thing
Right.
and not the relationship. Because he said, even though I did this great thing, it's shredded and there's nothing to show for it, therefore I give up.
Yeah, it's so he kind of isolates that sacrament as, okay, this is no longer a signpost directing me toward God, but this is all I have of this love that I once knew and like had a shot at but botched, so I'll just like hoard this and let my heart be in this coffin for the rest of my life, kind of thing.
And I'll say this, I think there's this back and forth. I think this movie really addresses, with or without realizing it, the problem of human suffering. Like, and Charlie, that's the thing, like, Charlie Brown for me has always been a character that is just a lovable loser.
He is the embodiment of the fall, right? Like, he's very human and relatable, and but because everything always goes wrong with him, like it really throws in our face like the inescapable shortcoming of humanity. Also,
But
like, let's talk about the kite a little bit. Talk about the kite.
Yeah, talk about the kite.
Like, I think the kite really. I mean, my first kind of gut reaction toward it was the attempt for virtue, for like living to the fullest potentiality of each of our humanity. Like, and he falls again and again. Like, he can't get it to fly on his own. Sort of like how virtue is impossible in the soul apart from grace, and his repeated failures kind of hammer home what Charlie Brown means, kind of like what you were saying, this whole problem of suffering, problem of evil. Like, we try many different ways to perfect human nature from just like strictly human elements. Like, if we just get this new program going, if we just get the right kind of government working, if we just get the right project, then we don't have to worry about the fact that we are selfish and sinful and fallen. Right, so he has like, that's what one of the themes that runs throughout the movie is like, well, I have this new strategy, I've been trying this long, I have this much experience, and kind of finally just do it a certain way, the right posture and everything, we can make it work. And I don't know, I guess it kind of throws in your face like there's more to it than that.
Yes, it does. And I think it leads us to the theological virtues, at least one in particular. And I think that's what, in this particular film, as opposed to like Charlie Brown, like the musical, you're giving Charlie Brown in the books, I've always kind of considered Charlie Brown like a lovable loser. And in this particular instance, with your idea of virtue and the kite, he is propelled and impelled and compelled. He's pelled.
He is so pelled
by hope.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he messes up, I mean, at least up to that point of despair, where he puts away the pencil, he's positive and he smiles and he thinks, you know what, today's going to be a good day, particularly when he's motivated by the idea of the little red-haired girl and impressing her and the love that he seeks, that deepest desire in his heart. And I don't know about faith and love, maybe you can touch on that, but I just see hope all throughout this movie. Like, and this hope that builds and builds against struggle, against strife, against suffering. That, and this is why I thought of the moment with Little Red Haired Girl as the culmination of that process, because he finally, it's the Christian life. It's despite struggle, I continue to fight because I know the Lord.
And how does he like come to that moment? It's because the kite is finally flying,
yep.
Which he doesn't get flying by focusing so much on the work. There's a great quote by G.K. Chesterton where he says that someone was talking about virtue as like, just gave it its classical definition of like a habitual movement toward the good or whatever. And Chesterton's response was all habit is a bad habit. Like, he talks about how habit for habit's own sake deprives the act of any of its merit. That a better like approach to virtue would be, on paper it looks like a habitual good doing, but if you're doing it for the sake of a habit, like, well, I always go to the homeless shelter on Wednesdays at 3 p.m., so I'm going to go there again, like, not because there's any movement of love in my heart toward the poor, but because, I have fallen into a groove that carries me, and there's no
much like habitual sin is
Right.
lessened in its gravity.
Exactly.
By habit, habitual virtue made it sin.
So Charlie Brown, all these years focusing on, his own form and his own I don't know how to describe it, like his own methodology for getting the kite to fly, like kind of forgets the joy of flying a kite, like kind of loses sight of his real purpose, not to have fun and to like enjoy the wind and the soaring and the flight of his kite, but just to succeed and stop failing. Like his motivation becomes negative, and that kind of is the source of his failure until he's drawn by love to catch the girl before she goes away for summer camp, return the pencil, like, why did you choose me, kind of thing. He's caught up in love, and that gives wind to his kite, and he's finally flying it. And the whole community, it affects the whole community, as love always does.
It draws everyone.
Yeah, and everyone cheers, and he still doesn't notice that. Like that, he doesn't care because his heart is finally focused on the right.
It's not because he's focused on himself anymore, because
Yeah.
originally he's distracted by his own failures, but now he's distracted and doesn't notice things because he's focused on beatitude. Because
And he was just as distracted by his own fame too. Like everyone is, cherishing him and giving him all this praise, and he's totally self-focused through that whole thing. Like trying to hide from it sometimes, trying to make sense of it, and just like it starts to define his life for better or for worse. But the focus is incorrect, and he that's where he starts to kind of goes astray a little bit.
Oh man.
Kite was cool.
And I think one other thing too is, interestingly, the kite, although he is the one that takes the action in the end, he makes this plea for help. The kite is the one that literally tangles itself up with him and carries him. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's sort of the whole, the wind blows where it will kind of thing. You hear the sound of it. Yeah, it was a very interesting moment. Like up until that point, I mean, there's a lot of
How you guys doing?
doing well. Thank you.
Okay, good.
It's very good. There's a lot of elements of human life that the whole Charlie Brown plot just sort of leaves.
Yeah.
No one really cares. There's no grown-ups around anywhere. No one really knows how old the kids are. Like, not important.
It could be any age.
Yeah, the whole idea of God or religion or any kind of divine sense is just sort of left to the periphery until that moment, which is kind of, I think, a curious.
That's better. I think that serves the purpose better, though, because the purpose.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which is why I found it kind of strange that they put that like prayerful moment in there.
Yeah. Do you think that breaks, bursts the bubble, or do you
I'm
think
not sure.
it's a weird balance? It's got to be a very careful balance.
Mm-hmm.
But
No.
I wondered that myself because, again, like C.S. Lewis says that with the Chronicles of Narnia, when you dip something familiar in myth, it can still be used to teach.
Yeah.
Because little kids said to him, "Well, I love Aslan more than Jesus. Is that bad?" And he said, "It's not bad. Aslan is Jesus."
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to use parable. I mean, that's what Christ used. Being able to use parable that doesn't even talk about religion once is sometimes the most effective way of learning.
So kind of bringing it in to the story itself, sort of. I don't know, so like breaks character, like kind of, sort of like the curtain dropping, and like there's the man behind the curtain, whatever. I don't know, but it worked either way. I thought it was pertinent.
Yeah. How about that kid at the dance?
Which one?
He had his head licked.
Oh yeah,
his
that's my
legs.
favorite. I got dance like that. Lucy, I also found interesting. She sort of is like the voice of the world through the whole thing, which is kind of often hijacked by the evil one to be like the constant voice of accusation. You are
Of doubt.
a failure. You are always worthless. But it's interesting that in that brief span of fame and adoration by his peers, like I mean, she fights it for a bit, but once that switch has been made, I forget the line she says. It's like she says something like popular opinion dictates that you are an awesome person now, or something like that. So I'll go along with it. That's so Lucifer, like. Okay, well, we'll take this tack now. I'm still going to use it to twist things around, kind of put a lot of more pressure on you, sort of draw your focus inward again, but from a different angle this time. And, yeah, it was harsh. Let's see. But yeah, but even she like comes around in the end, sort of in that beatific moment, and he's raised high, like. Again, not for some great accomplishment, like or some undue fame like before, but because hey, you hit it off with the little redhead girl, like way to go.
Kudos.
Which I hope is what the attitude will look like.
Yeah,
that final moment.
That moment of celebration and rejoicing with the beloved, but also among the saints.
Yeah, when St. Paul talks about like receiving the weight of glory, like in our perfection, and what that means, like glory is not just a source of vanity, like a very earthly thing that has to somehow mandate that we are set above our peers, but that true glory like comes in just being beloved by our Father, like a child who's raised up onto his father's shoulders for hitting the ball in the backyard kind of thing. Experiences of glory that touches deeper than the greatest pop star or whatever who has the cheers and adoration of millions. Like that's sort of the glory to which we are called.
Ironically, something that their lives are typically lacking. Is that real, intimate.
Yeah,
love.
to be seen exactly as we are and still chosen, which is just great. Little redhead girl, like they could have completed the love story in a number of ways. I feel like the whole drawing names from a bowl came up. As soon as they introduced the theme, I got so excited. Like people are going to be choosing you for you.
And again, it's another instance of her initiating.
Yeah, and at first, like the first time around, when it was we're just going to randomly pick partners for the book report project, it was like, oh, everyone's hoping against hope that he gets paired with her. This unlikely thing.
Right.
And that's sort of the Lord's working behind the scenes kind of thing, just like the kite falling out of the tree. Like here is a random movement of inexplicable circumstances that put us where we need to be at the right time. But in the end, it's for all to see. Like I choose you for you, and which is totally befuddling to him, but that is each of our destiny. Like
something else I thought was interesting was the Red Baron side plot. That actually itself was a sort of a different telling of the main story.
Yeah, I don't have to see it again to really unpack that.
But I think the Red
there's
Baron,
a lot there.
I think the Red Baron is it manifests this this antagonistic spirit that doesn't have a face or a name in the main plot, which we could easily parallel with Satan.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're going to continue the analogy to the Christian life. But I thought that was really interesting because I'd never, ever tied Snoopy's Red, and maybe because it never was tied, but tied Snoopy's Red Baron bit to Charlie Brown's failures and successes. I thought that was really cool. That was interesting the way that was done.
Yeah, I mean, what are the two big roles that, like, the crossover Red Baron makes in Charlie Brown's role? Like, Linus brings in the plane, And while everyone is waiting for the arrival of the new student, the redhead girl, and Charlie Brown is kind of bracing himself for that first impression, the plane like goes crazy in the classroom and like causes all this mayhem, and like throws everyone off their game, especially Charlie Brown, who's then like forced into confrontation with the girl, and then freaks out and runs out of the room. So from the very start, like Evil One introduces confusion, like as his principal tool, confusion of fear, and that kind of starts Charlie Brown off on like he's invited into a relationship. Here comes the Lord of Hosts into your life, and immediately Evil One is there with okay, start from fear, like you are unworthy, you're off your game. No one can like you for who you are. So just run, like run from relationship with the Lord. And then the other time that it makes an appearance in Charlie Brown's world is when it shreds his book report, right? Where he has made good steps. They've been misfounded and kind of self-focused of preparing this book report as a vessel for his love for her, a means of achieving relationship. But the evil one sees how he has misplaced it, and even though the Lord is delighted in his heart's good work in doing it, and doesn't care so much about the report itself, the works itself that we do, like the evil one sees how we care about it and are wrongfully invested in it, and so has authority to just like snatch it away, which doesn't matter at all to the Lord. Like things come, things go. Sort of touching again on the problem of evil, the problem of suffering you were talking about earlier, like why do good things happen to bad people and blah blah blah. Like the focus is always in the wrong spot in those questions, and Charlie Brown falls for it hook, line, and sinker. And when the paper is shredded, when his good works are shredded, when the trappings of life that we see as good are shredded, and we don't have that deep root in the Lord's heart, like then the whole project is shredded, and I gotta run back home and lock away your pencil in my desk drawer because I have no hope for like authentic interpersonal relationship anymore.
So, conclusion. You could wrap this up.
In conclusion,
You could wrap this movie into one sentence. What would it be?
I feel like that's really hard.
I know. I'm asking a lot of you. I'll throw a few maybes out there.
I'm thinking of a lot of scripture verses.
Charlie Brown is the everyman.
Is the everyman?
Charlie Brown's struggle is ours. Charlie Brown. You're a good man, Charlie Brown.
You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Yeah. Good not because of the good you do,
But because.
or the failures you've avoided, but because of what you are inside of the Lord, which is worth choosing, worth loving.
Nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares.
It's true. We're loved into being, our origin and our destiny.
Any last thoughts for your viewers?
Go fly kites with the Lord.